pretty cool to meet you, Ric Browde, because I had heard about Wings of Rescue, and I thought you were some mysterious airplane owning, animal loving man who pulled the strings in the background like the Wizard of Oz. It turns out you're this real human who really does this. Wings of Rescue. You invented the idea and you do it. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can also see a really cool pinball machine in the background of Ric's room and a lot of gold and platinum records. Something very interesting in his past has turned him into an animal flying aviator. But you obviously have a music background, don't you?
Yes. Yeah,
Is it something you talk about or not? I think it's interesting for people to know how other people wind up in the animal welfare space.
I was a songwriter and record producer, and I was fortunate enough to sell about 28 million records during my
Wow.
run.
Nice. And were dogs or cats or some other creature always part of your life?
Yeah, always. I've always had dogs or cats, and or both, and living without them.
And what about the airplane part of you?
The airplane, it was when I was in rock and roll, we were always flying here, there, and everywhere.
Right.
But I came into Wings of Rescue. I didn't found it. We were founded by a person who thankfully has left, but he had this idea with a very small plane, and then we metamorphosed into what we're doing now, which is we're using bigger planes. And since our inception in 2012, we've flown over 88,000 pets to safety and delivered
8,000.
88,000. And then we've delivered nearly a million pounds of humanitarian aid to disaster victims.
Wow. So just without naming names, when you say thankfully the founder is no longer here, you mean on this earth or just no longer part of the
So
organization?
our Wings of Rescue, we've come a long way since his days, and we're much more streamlined, much quicker in response. And whereas when we originally started, we were just flying basically from California to the Pacific Northwest. We've reached all 50 states and 18 countries. So
And is this also private pilots with their private planes joining forces with you, or is it
that's
just
the way we
your?
started. That's the way we started. And used to have 27 planes that we would be using with private pilots, but they'd be small planes, unpressurized and things like that. And they might only have 7 or 8 dogs on them.
Right.
So the person who founded Wings Rescue got a Pilatus PC-12, which was much bigger, able to deliver like the record we put on is 179, I think, or something like
Woo.
that. But then we realized we could do even more, and we started chartering aircraft. And we found that owning an airplane is like the old adage about owning a boat.
Yes.
The second
Mate.
happiest day of your life is the day you bought it, and the happiest day is the day you sold it. And
Yeah.
so we sold our airplane, and now we primarily charter. We have a few pilots that will fly an odd mission here and there, but we primarily charter larger cargo planes. The other day, I flew with 325 pets aboard from Florida up to New Hampshire. We once even had a C-130 that had over 700 pets in Hawaii to Washington. We adjust the size to where we're going, what we can place of the plane that we're going to use. And so we have a lot of planes that are at our beck and call this way, and we don't have to do the maintenance anymore.
I think I remember the story of what you did in Hawaii, which is, I believe there had been a natural disaster. I don't know if it was an earthquake or a volcano or a tsunami, something where the shelters had to be emptied in order for the displaced and lost animals to have some place to shelter.
Well, that was Hawaii. That wasn't Hawaii in that situation, but the Hawaii shelters were just overflowing, just
Yeah,
beyond, and they were going to have to resort to mass euthanasia. So that was the impetus for
got
that.
it. You
We've
took them to Seattle, I think, or someplace where there were almost no pets for adoption because it had been such a successful shelter
This,
system.
this is the pre-COVID thing. Things
Yes.
have changed dramatically post-COVID, but at the time, yeah, all the pets went into Washington, and then some went on to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Spokane, which is also in Washington. But so yeah, we were able to place all of them, and they all were adopted rather quickly, which was the whole beauty of the whole situation.
kind of a waiting list or a waiting line of people like parents at the school, like lined up in their SUVs to take one dog or cat after another. It is amazing what can happen when you can do quantity. I think it's something that is hard for people to understand the value of quantity. Because yes, originally I think pilots for paws or paws for pilots or something. I talked to them on the show, I don't know, a dozen years ago, and it would be a guy with his single engine jet, if you will. In fact, one of those men died.
They're all prop planes. They're all
One
prop
of
planes.
them died doing a mission with a
Yeah.
handful of animals aboard, just a handful. And it was Maverick and the old days of gold mining or something. You go out there with your pan and mine for gold. And it's like you found the gold mine, if you will, and found a way to take massive quantities of animals that have no place and put them places where they're needed and wanted and can be sheltered, not even for very long. But that takes a lot of knowledge and research and relationships on your part. So is
No,
that one of the main things you do is
that
make
is
those relationships?
that is basically, I almost feel like I'm a pimp because I'm just trying
Yes.
to
Yes.
get these pets into good places. But yeah, it's about relationships, about trust, and earning people's confidence that what
Yes.
we're bringing them is going to move through their system. Because no shelter wants to accept pets that are going to just clog up their shelter. Get pets that are going to move quickly through their system. They want to take the pets that need help. They don't want somebody who's just a behaviorally challenged or
Right.
disease ridden. So
Right.
we have to make sure we use the utmost in integrity because you're only as good as your last transport in this business. And if you want to
That's
call
very interesting. So if you said, "Oh no, these are all going to be good pets," and you brought a lot of semi-feral dogs, let's say, that forget house trained, they weren't even used to living in homes or being on a
it,
leash, and then it becomes a living nightmare for the accepting shelter who don't have the staff or the volunteers to fix those issues.
and the resources to
Yes,
do this. And it all gets into that. So they're not going to want to deal with me again.
that's
And
right.
by the way, we were born out of pilots and paws because pilots and
Oh,
paws,
interesting.
the founder of Wings of Rescue had a plane that could go more than 500 miles, but pilots and paws only wants people to fly 500 miles. And usually they're smaller planes. We had a
Right.
Piper Caliber at the time. And he's like, oh, I could take 10 dogs and I could go 1,000 miles. And they were like, no, you can't. And he's like, oh, yes, I
Wow.
can. And that was the founder of Wings. That was the foundation of Wings of Rescue. That was in 2012. I came aboard in 2014 and started running things pretty much officially in 2017, but basically in 2016. And that's when we expanded
So,
into.
how did your experience as a record producer give you the people skills, the organizational skills, the financial knowledge to make all these moving pieces come together? It's a fairly complex puzzle, which other people think, oh, that's really nice. You have a plane. Just put all the dogs in crates. Wait a minute. Are the dogs vaccinated? Are the dogs mange free? What crates? Where are the crates? Do they have to have health certificates? Oh, yeah, they're going interstate. So, all those things, as a record producer, was that like dealing with, I don't know, crazy artists who were drunk on the floor at 2 in the afternoon and you had to somehow rouse them to do their recording?
The pets are far better behaved than my work. But and cuter as well. But a lot of when I was in bands, when I was playing in bands and working with bands all the time, I was always doing involved with the touring aspect. I learned that part.
Oh,
So there was the touring part, so it wasn't that far removed, and we occasionally used chartered aircraft. But what happened was I think it was 2003, my wife and I woke up one day and we've been married since Earth was young. I think we're 47 years into this
that's
now.
pretty awesome.
But,
Congratulations.
but we lived in Beverly Hills and we had two Mercedes in the garage. And we're just like, we woke up and said, the world doesn't need another heavy metal album or glam
Right,
rock stuff.
right.
But we want to do something to make the world better. And both of us are really into pets and dogs, and they run our lives. And we're like, we were unaware that pets were dying in shelters like they were then and are
Yes,
now.
Yes.
And I decided, my wife started volunteering at the East Valley Los Angeles shelter.
Well, that's harsh.
And then I had broken my ankle on some stupid thing that I did, but I'm very good at breaking ankles. So why don't you come to one of our mobile adoptions? And you can do the paperwork and things. And you're good with dogs anyway. So I did, and then I was like, oh, this is a stupid way of running things. We could be so more efficient.
Oh,
We would take rock and roll marketing, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden
my,
I found myself volunteering at the South LA shelter, which was even worse, and then Baldwin Park, which was killing 100 dogs every day.
oh my
And
God.
so what we were doing and what we decided you what the sheltering was doing, they were marketing poorly and very badly their
Mhm.
pets because they were selling all their pets is like going, this dog dies at midnight if you don't get
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
if you were if you had a used car, you would be like going, this car is breaking down and it's a bad muffler and the engine's probably got 3 miles left on it and it's gonna break down. Each go, this car is going to improve your life. This is going to make you
Right.
sexy, get you laid, or this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
So why not do it with dogs? So what we did, we were at Baldwin Park. I started this thing called the networking list, and we brought in photographers from Vogue. We were the first shelter to use
Love it.
social media. We were the first shelter to use YouTube. And all of a sudden, we had 70,000 followers on Facebook, and they went from killing 100 dogs every day to where the last month that I was involved with this, they only killed nine, and eight of them were owner requested euthanasia for dog. People couldn't afford veterinarians to end of life decisions. Another one was
Right.
for a dog bites on it, but it changed everything. Then I came to the notice of Wings of Rescue, and they asked me to they needed help to do this, what I thought was the biggest flight ever. It was going to be 105 dogs to Idaho for this TV show that they were going to do. And I was like, that they said, we need $7,500 to do it. And I was like, going, let me use this Facebook page that I started and see what
Wow.
happens. And we raised the $7,500 in 15 minutes and
Yikes.
ended up putting 115 dogs out. And then by doing that, the founder of Wings Rescue was like, why don't you stay here? And people were telling me like, he's a horrible human being. You'll never be able to last a minute with him. And somehow I outlasted him and here we are.
Interesting. So I think your people skills, as well as organizational ones, obviously came in handy. And I'm sure there were people in the rock and roll and music business who were not people you would love to have dinner with. And yet you made business with them and you did what needed to be done to get a job done or to get a high quality product made.
Well, I don't elevate me to any level. My people skills can sometimes suck. I can be as
But
subtle
that
as a
means you get
about
things
it, but
done. I'm not
I
saying
get
you
things
bend over
done. Yeah,
backwards and
yeah.
tell everybody who's obnoxious that they aren't, but it sounds as though there's a lot of management. People are so much harder to manage than animals. We know this. Jumping
Yeah.
to the topic of New Hampshire, since I live in Vermont and recently was speaking to someone who runs a shelter in New Hampshire. It's the oddest thing because there seem to be so few dogs and even no cats for adoption in these shelters. In fact, I used to live in East Hampton, which is why this is where the show comes from originally, and was very involved with the three or four, I won't call them warring shelters, but shelters trying to get they all seem to want to have a bigger party than the next one, which isn't to say they weren't doing great work for the animals. They were, but there was a lot of kind of territoriality because, sorry, but it was the Hamptons. And at one point, there was a dog, a friend wanted to adopt a dog. She lived in the Berkshires. And I was asking Southampton Shelter just because I knew them and I knew the person, the behavior person, Amy Sadler, any dogs that would be a good fit for this kind of aging lady that lives alone. Oh, yeah, we have a really good dog just came in from Vermont. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Vermont? Yeah, from Chittenden County, which is way north. We gave them a dozen cats and they gave us a dozen large black dogs because nobody theoretically wanted large black dogs, but in fact, they adopted them all out. But the New Hampshire shelter sounded as though it was looking for something to do. The Berkshire County Humane Society A gorgeous facility, wonderfully run. Great guy runs it, amazing staff, great volunteers. You go in there with these plexiglass fronted private cubicles for the dogs, and they're empty. What's up with that? I'm sure post COVID it's a little worse, but in
Yeah,
affluent communities, the dogs leave.
yeah. Everything goes south to north in transport, and it has to deal with educational and environmental reasons to do that. But you get into Maine, you get into New Hampshire, Vermont, there's still a capacity to receive. We just sent 300 cats up there, and on the 21st, we're going to be sending 400 up to New Hampshire.
Wow. From Florida.
Yeah, from Florida. Yeah, we've been transporting mostly. We try and keep things going south, mostly south to north, and not do as much cross country stuff. Though last weekend we flew two planes. I flew from Los Angeles to White Plains, New York, and then another
Whoa.
plane from Los Angeles to Gary, Indiana, basically
Wow.
Chicago, and then on to suburban Philadelphia. So we do that. We do these things. We've flown already this year. We've flown 2,760 pets. And we have in the next 8 days, we're going to do another 600 pets. Yeah,
Extraordinary. This is not because of natural disaster. Only natural disaster are humans who
when,
are
when
responsible.
when natural disasters happen, it's actually the easiest time to transport pets. We've responded to pretty much every natural disaster in the Western Hemisphere over the last, since 2017. Hurricanes, volcanoes, floods, tornadoes, cold fronts, flood, you name it, we've been there. And earthquakes. And what we do is we go in with humanitarian aid and then come out
Yes.
with pets who were in the shelters prior to the storm, prior to
Yes.
because we want to make sure that the pets have a place to go to that are coming in to be reunited with their families. But
Yes.
the pets that we take out of disaster zones become the Kardashians of pets because there's this weird sick thing in American culture where I want a pet from this disaster, and I would like telling
Yes.
every
Yes.
I'd be telling every shelter, tell everybody that every pet in your shelter came from whatever the disaster was,
Yes.
because the
Yes.
pet's not going to rat you out and get these pets into homes. Because somebody wants to go and brag, I rescued this dog from Hurricane Ida. And it's just,
Oh
yeah,
my God, you are completely agree with you. I've never heard anybody say it out loud. This idea that people have these dogs and they want to tell you, "Oh, this dog was found on the side of the road in Georgia and it had been starving and it was going to lose its leg and it had mange, it was covered in ticks, and it was running across the highway and somebody saved it and now I've got it." So it's about you. It's
yeah,
about you.
absolutely. So I tell shelters, make a story up about every pet. Um,
Yes.
I know I have a dog that survived 4 hurricanes in the Bahamas, but that because I got him from the situation. But it's just you don't. A dog is a dog. It's going to
Yeah.
love you
Yeah.
unconditionally and enrich your life. It doesn't need the backstory, but unfortunately, it does.
It
Yeah,
does. You're right. It's that human nature thing. And you made a really great point about bringing in the Vogue photographer originally, and you glossed over that. But in the same way that you were a pioneer in other ways, using YouTube and social media, the idea of doing a glam photo of a dog by a really cool photographer who can make that dog look sexy, interesting, funny, aristocratic, goofy, it makes a difference. That photo is like online dating.
it is. It's the best way to do it is show this dog will improve your life. And in the videos, we made a big point of this dog. We described the energy level of the dog and does it walk well unleashed? Would it be good with kids? Was it good with other dogs? Good with cats? Whatever. But
Yes.
sell the dog. Don't just go, this dog's gonna die if you don't get it.
Yeah, no, negative messaging is probably not the most compelling, I would
No.
say. What
It,
about what about Puerto Rico? I'm very involved with Animal Lighthouse Rescue in New York. They're my partners now in the premieres of the New York Dog Film Festival and Cat Film Festival in New York. Having just recently gone through San Juan and realizing that it is quite impoverished. You mentioned areas in California, which I happen to know having lived where you lived, but the places you mentioned, you don't even go there as a white
we
person in a Mercedes. Not a great idea.
Yeah, but we go to Puerto Rico. We've moved over 2,000 pets from there. We're
Nice.
close partners with a group, an amazing group called the Sato Project
Yeah.
there, and who are the gold standard of rescues in Puerto Rico. And in fact, we're just starting the Sato Project now. So we're just starting a thing where we're going to do a monthly flight out of San Juan. Actually, we're going to go out of Ceiba, but and then we're going to fly to Morristown, New Jersey. But the thing about Puerto Rico, we really got involved in it. It was a funny story. In 2016, I did a flight out of there with a very slow but big airplane, shorts, and we took all these shelter pets to Florida. We probably shouldn't. At that time, there was receiving capacity in Florida, but now there isn't any. You don't want to displace any pets by your transport. But there were about 8 different groups involved in this, and it was done in partnership with the Humane Society of the United States, now called the Humane World. And one of the people was one of the groups was the Sato Project. And the woman who ran it, this woman named Chrissy Beckholz, and I went at it tooth and nail because her crates were too big and they couldn't get on the plane. And I was like, "You want your dogs on this plane? You're gonna have to." I never use smaller crates. I hate you. And blah 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 blah. Okay. Didn't she call her husband called her said, "You should get along with this guy because he's your ticket out." And so she called me up and said, "Okay, I'm going to prove to you that I can do everything right." And we did two. She goes, "I want to do a flight." And there was something about her. It was just this is the person I would punch her out, except she was a professional boxer. So I would have probably lost. And her
Well,
husband
that's very funny.
her husband's is a world champion Muay Thai fighter. So it was not a
Whoa.
fight. But anyway, so I agreed to do it, and everything was perfect. And Chrissy and I have become the best friends. I view her as a sister that I wish I always had. We're best friends, and we're joined at the hip and trying to help each other.
Yes,
So we move a lot of pets out of Puerto Rico, but Puerto
that's
Rico is
great.
a very challenging situation because you have a lot of hoarders that they think they're doing the right thing, but their pets are just terribly taken care of. During Hurricane Maria, we discovered that there were more stray pets than there were people on the island, which is
Wow.
really, and it's still horrid. There's a place called Dead Dog Beach
Sure,
where,
everyone knows about the misery of that. And
yeah,
someone else just told me, we're running out of time, that there's some beaches that tourists want to go to in Puerto Rico in the less trafficked areas, and there's packs of feral dogs who will attack people. So it's pretty out of control. Rick, we've run out of time, but your stories are amazing. Your story is great. Wonderful punchline that you and Sato Pradacek and Chrissy are the brothers and sisters from different mothers. And I love the work you're doing. When you bring a load of animals to Vermont, you have to let me know so I can meet you if you happen to be on that flight. Or I can meet the animals at least and talk to whoever walked the walk because you talk the talk and you walk the walk.
we'll be in Laconia on the 21st in
Oh my
March.
God. Okay, there you go. We will be in touch. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here and for your years of good work and your thousands of pets who have a much better life thanks to you and to your wife. And good thing you gave up Beverly Hills and the two Mercedes. You have your souls are now as big and strong as a Mercedes, which is really great. Thank you for being here.
Cheers. Thank you.